It's a long conversation, and I work with clients on this because it has to be tailored to people's blood work and age and that kind of thing. But in general, what I do is listed on page 304 of my book. So that's the cheat sheet of lifespan. But they fall into buckets. One is the plant polyphenol cocktail, resveratrol, quercetin, fisetin. I mix that in the morning. This morning I had yogurt with it mixed in. But there's that, and then there's NMN, which I take 1 gram of every morning, which is water soluble. I just swallow that down. And then I take metformin at night, probably every other day. And those are the main things. There's plenty of other things that work for me, I believe. But that's a good start. And I would start, I'm not recommending anything, of course, I'm not a doctor, but if I was to do it, I would start slowly. I would change just 1 or 2 things at a time. And I would measure baseline before and after to see how you're doing, because again, you don't know what's happening unless you measure it. You can do Inside Tracker, I think, I'm not sure in the UK what the equivalent is, but you can do Inside Tracker from the UK. They let you upload your data for a small fee. And that would allow you to see if something's going wrong or going right. But also, you can also show that data to your doctor. I would recommend working closely with your doctor if you're starting to take some of this stuff, even if they're just supplements. I'm also working on trying to figure out how to approve or at least give education about which supplements work, don't work, might work, which ones are pure, which ones are filled with toxins. This kind of thing needs to happen in the industry, because every day I get asked by dozens of people, tell me a brand that I can trust. And I literally cannot, because how would I know? I'm not a nutraceutical guy. I'm a scientist who works in a lab on mice. So I helped start this company about 12, 13 years ago. And the idea is that you measure things that give you information about wellness and health and longevity. And there are 43 things that we measure. Some of them your doctor would never look at. And they cover things like liver health, inflammation, blood, heart, muscle, stress. And we put that into an algorithm that was built using machine learning and most of the world's scientific literature and 100,000 people's medical records. And it gives out recommendations on how to optimize your body, not just whether you're sick or not, but for you, what is optimal, and then how to get that to where you need to be. There's a green zone. And so I've kept those biomarkers of mine in or very near to the green zone for the last 10 years. And you can see the tracking. They just get better and better and better if I follow their recommendations. The gut microbiome is extremely important. We know from studies of fish and in mice that if you transplant young microbiota into older animals, they will live longer. And our microbiome changes with age. There's no question about that. What we don't know is if you take young person's microbiome and give it to an older person, what would happen? I would guess that it would be helpful, but there are ways to optimize your microbiome. Part of the reason that I recommend this diet or talk about this diet is that it does change your microbiome in ways that are healthy. And it also means that when I eat a giant steak, I cannot digest it because my body doesn't have those microbes to absorb it and process it. So microbiome is extremely important, and metformin does alter the microbiome. The other thing that it does is it interferes with mitochondria. It slightly inhibits the energy production in the body, and as a result, the body overreacts and makes more mitochondria to make more energy. So a little bit of hormesis, right? A little bit that hurts you gives you this protective response. And there is a really slight downside to metformin. Because it inhibits energy, you feel a little bit weaker if you've just taken it. You can do maybe 1 or 2 fewer repetitions of an exercise. So there are 2 things to do. One is just try harder. And the other is to take metformin after you've worked out. Yeah. And so that is a really easy thing to change. I mean, if it was a sensible world, yeah, most people over the age of 40 would be taking it. It's very cheap, it's very safe. And if there are problems which can happen in the stomach, for example, it's reversible, you just stop taking it. And you do it under doctor's supervision anyway. So I take the strong view that if we were a rational planet, metformin would be given to millions of people who don't yet have type 2 diabetes. But we're not rational, and doctors and insurance companies are hesitant to give medicines to people who are not sick yet, unfortunately. My doctor wouldn't give me a prostate test. He said, "Do you have a family history?" "No." "Are you sick?" "No." "Can I have the test?" "No." "Why not?" "Well, you're not sick." Well, my answer to that is, why do I have to wait until I've got prostate cancer till I come see you? It's similar, the view now, which is come see me when you're sick. But that has to change, and I think that having people on metformin before they get type 2 diabetes is a very sensible thing. I don't know how quickly this is going to be adopted. More likely, it's going to be the consumer that takes it into their own hands, like Inside Tracker. And companies in the US are already, with doctors involved, prescribing metformin over the internet. And I think, I'm not condoning it. I am just telling you a fact that seems to be the wellness trend, is that people can't wait for their doctors to read my book and to get into it and read the papers, straight to companies that allow them to do so. But it's much easier to prevent something than to treat it once it's happened. Just right now, we look at people falling off a cliff, and we another analogy that I've used is whack-a-mole medicine, trying to just beat these things down as they pop up. But speaking of going to the edge of a cliff, it's not just important to know why someone fell off a cliff. It's important to know why were they on the edge of a cliff in the first place. And we ignore that first process, which is really the majority of our lives. And that is changing, though. The medical community is catching up. World Health Organization has declared aging a medical condition for the first time ever. So there's that movement. But consumers are saying that they've had enough of this approach to medicine, and that having an annual checkup or waiting till you get sick is not what they're looking for. And there is a booming industry. Inside Tracker is leading, but there are a lot of companies now with monitors of glucose and home swabs, where people are taking their own health into their own hands. Now, physicians and maybe yourself are saying, well, we're all going to die if people are diagnosing themselves. But that's really not the point. They want to get some data on themselves. They want to know how they're doing, which they cannot get anywhere else. And the fascinating thing is that data is quality. Inside Tracker uses the same testing companies that the doctors use here. And my doctor, for example, loves that data. I show him the graphs and he makes better decisions because of it. But he cannot afford, or the insurance company will not pay for everybody to have that level of testing. So if you'd rather give up a cappuccino a day and rather have a look inside your body, that's the trade-off. And I choose to look inside my body and just make my own coffee at home. One of my now good friends, Ken Rideout is his name. He was a middle-of-the-road marathon runner, kind of doing it as a hobby. And I met him a few years ago, and he decided to make it his mission to see if he could use my science to improve. And every few months he got faster and faster and faster. And he's now 50 years old, and he's the world champion for his age, and often just beats the 30-year-old in marathons. Myrtle Beach was the most recent. He will be in the same marathon as you. So look out for Ken Rideout. If he wins this race, he's the official world fastest 50-year-old in marathons.
Oh, wow.
And he's on NMN and resveratrol mainly. And, we don't have a twin as a negative control, which is what we should have. And it should be placebo controlled. But absent that, it's pretty interesting what we've seen happen to him.